The fact remains that under Tim Walz's watch, you've got over $1 billion of fraud, it appears, and it is growing. The number is growing. It starts not only with the $250 million pandemic fraud case with Feeding Our Future, but now you're finding out that the housing assistance program, which was created back in 2020, and they estimated that it would have a $2 million annual budget. It was $61 million in the first 6 months of this year alone. And again, it is the Somali community, and we don't want to paint a broad brush. I know that the conversation started on Friday, but there are great Somali residents in Minnesota. I've got Somalis for Trump in St. Cloud, Minnesota, right? So the fact remains, though, that a lot of these fraud schemes have come out of that community. Where has Keith Ellison been? What's he been doing trying to watch out for the Minnesota taxpayer and make sure that we don't have this kind of fraud happening? Groceries are down. Gas is at a 5-year low that you put in your car, Maria.
Yeah, that's good.
And you still have the permanent tax policy that will take effect in January. No taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security. These are the marquee items that Donald Trump ran on that have actually been delivered. And look, they destroyed this economy under Joe Biden for 4 years. Donald Trump has been there for less than a year, and he is already showing progress. Get ready for 2026. I believe it's going to take off, and we will be in a great position for the midterms because Americans will realize that exactly what they voted for when they voted for Donald J. Trump last November and Republicans in the House and the Senate, promises made have been promises kept.
Tom Emmer, meanwhile, is calling to investigate a report published by the Manhattan Institute. It claims Minnesota tax dollars are being sent to Somalia and ending up in the hands of a terror group. Meanwhile, President Trump writing on Truth Social, I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. Jeff Paul has this story for us live from Los Angeles. Hi, Jeff.
Hey there. Well, yeah, Congressman Emmer says if this is true, it would not only be a grave national security concern, but a slap in the face to the hardworking, law-abiding people of Minnesota. This all stems back to a single report published by urban policy magazine City Journal, which is published by conservative think tank the Manhattan Institute. The report, citing unnamed sources, alleges funding that was supposed to go to state programs to help with housing and feeding people was being stolen. It claims some of that money was then sent to Somalia through a complex network where it eventually, according to the City Journal, ends up aiding the al-Qaeda-linked terror group al-Shabaab. Congressman Emmer, along with 3 other members of Congress, have now signed a letter addressed to Minnesota's U.S. attorney demanding answers.
You simply can't continue doing this. It's one thing to bilk the Minnesota taxpayers. That's bad enough. But to ship the money to a terrorist organization, al-Shabaab, I mean, any average Minnesotan should not want to put up with that at all. We've been trying to raise the alarm on this for over 3 years, Lawrence. Over 3 years, fraudsters have already stolen over $1 billion from the taxpayers in Minnesota under Tim Walz's watch, and the number is growing. You got the largest pandemic fraud case in the country, $250 million. By the way, no one in the Walz administration has been held accountable, and, nobody's saying that all Somalis are criminals, but guess what? These crimes have been committed by Somali immigrants. In fact, over 70 people have been charged and are being tried and convicted, by the way, in the pandemic fraud case. But it doesn't stop there. You've got housing fraud. You've got daycare fraud. You've got 80 autism centers under investigation. All of this under Tim Walz's watch. And his response? God bless President Trump for actually saying something about this and calling it out. They won't even report it in the Twin Cities. And finally, because our president has pointed out how awful this is under this incompetent leadership of Tim Walz, people are actually starting to take notice. Well, Tim Walz refuses to take accountability for the fraud he created and enabled. President Trump is committed to justice for the crimes against the taxpayers of Minnesota, and I am too. I want to thank Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent for launching an investigation into this important issue. Minnesotans deserve answers and accountability, and we're not going to rest until they get both. And thank God for President Trump raising this, because no one was covering it. We've been sounding the alarm on this fraud for over 3 years. No one in this room and no one back at home was reporting how bad this is. Finally, because of our president raising the issue, people are talking about it. By the way, his being the governor of Minnesota is the ultimate crime. This guy is a fraud from the word go. He lied about his military career. He got caught on national TV, David, lying about when he was at Tiananmen Square. How dumb is that? And his answer was, sometimes he's a bit of a knucklehead. Well, guess what? Whatever the criminal enterprise that was being run through the state of Minnesota, we need to find out exactly who is responsible within his administration.
The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier, or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
I'm from Minneapolis, and Somalians are just part of the culture here. As far back as I can remember, I've always seen Somalians. And in these past 5 years, the population increased so much. It went from seeing them to them feeling like the majority a lot of places that I go. And also, over the past few years, I've noticed that I see a lot of them with new cars. So I'm a handyman, and I worked on a lot of Section 8 housing to make sure they're up to standard. And one thing I've noticed when I go see Section 8 houses, one, it's usually a Somali family. And what I mean usually, it's 9 times out of 10. And those houses usually have new cars in the front. I mean cars with an S, multiple new cars. And what I mean usually is like 8 out of 10 Somali houses, I've seen that. And I always wondered how someone on Section 8 can afford multiple new cars. I just couldn't put it together. So now finding out about this fraud stuff makes so much sense. And you know who I feel bad for other than me for paying for that shit with my taxes? Is Somalians who came here on the up and up and who didn't break the law. Because as a black man, I know how it feels to be judged because someone else with your same skin color did some stupid shit that you wouldn't approve of. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but one thing I do know is I've been saying for years we need to kick Tim Walz out because he knew about this shit from the beginning.